Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm Charlene Higgins. I'm Assistant Director for Student Success, working in the Office of Global Engagement, also with Bridget, who's here. And more excitingly, we're also joined by five international student alumni and one soon-to-be graduating student who has an interesting job search and offer experience to share as well. And I know always some good advice in terms of being involved in things here at the Chicago School as well. So how this will work, I will turn it over. I'll ask each of our alumni to give a brief introduction, who you are, what program you graduated from and when, what city what you're currently working in or have a job offer to begin working in soon. What city you're located in could be good to know. And then what status you're currently in or applying for and what that process was like. All right. And then anything else that you feel called to share too, just about kind of your background and what you're doing career-wise. Since first on my screen is Luna, do you want to go ahead and kick us off and get started?
Sure. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are, everyone. My name is Luna Lu. I first graduated from the Chicago School, the MA MFT program back in 2015. And then I recently graduated from the PsyD Applied Clinical Psychology program actually last year in the spring. Currently, I'm on H-1B work visa. I'm located in Santa Ana, California, which is, Southern California, nice and sunny, 90 degrees right now. I work at a community nonprofit, which they help to sponsor my work visa, but also they actually help to sponsor my green card. So I'm actually in the pipeline for that as well. Did I miss anything else?
I think that's it. Yeah,
All right,
thank
I'll
you.
pass the mic to the next person.
Okay, and I think that is going to be Shania.
Hi everyone. My name is Shania De Silva. I graduated from the Chicago School in 2024. I did my master's in industrial organizational psychology, and I was in the Dallas campus. And currently, I serve as a program coordinator at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And so I am in San Antonio currently, and I work for the Global Initiatives team. So my role entails developing and managing programs for the global relations and also student success, especially international students. So it's quite rewarding to be able to work in the international education space. And I currently am on my OPT. So this is my, I think, almost end of my first year of my STEM OPT, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Shania. Sorry, I was having a issue unmuting. Yeah, Shania is on the STEM extension. So if anybody is in an IO program and has questions or curiosities about what that application is like, Shania is a good person to share that. Simran, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Simran. I am a licensed clinical psychologist at Rooted Connections Counseling, which is based in Chicago. I also serve as the testing services coordinator at the practice. I finished my doctorate in 2024 in clinical psychology. I also have a master's in ABA, and I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I'm currently in the US on an O1 visa, and yeah, I'm glad to be here and share a little bit about my journey in the hopes that it helps some of you.
Thank you. Next, Samchart, do you want to go ahead?
Yep. Hi guys. My name is Shard. So I completed my master and PhD in applied behavior analysis at Chicago campus. So I graduated mastered in 2018 and PhD in 2023. So I currently working as a board certified behavior analyst or BCBA at a special education district in Illinois. So right now I'm on H-1B visa.
Thank you. Isha, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Isha Karnik. I graduated from the MA Psychology program in 2023. Since then, I have been working with a boutique firm as a learning technologist, and I'm currently on a H-1B visa.
Great, thank you. And last, we have Padmini. Do you want to go ahead and share a little bit about your background and what you're doing?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Padmini and I am doing a master's in counseling psychology from the school currently. I will be graduating soon in June 2026. And the reason I came here because like I got a job that I'm going to be starting in August, and it was a good experience getting the job, and I will be applying next week for the H-1B visa. Luckily I found a job that was willing to sponsor me before I started working with them, so that was a good opportunity. uh, yeah, so looking forward to it and looking forward to get licensed soon as well. My licensure exam is very soon, so looking forward to that.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and just ask a couple initial questions for those on the call. And then also, if there are any questions from students joining, we'll have time at the end, or not even the end. We'll have plenty of time for questions. And if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat too, or you can raise your hand and ask them. My question though, I'm wondering to start with, Simran, I'm wondering, since you have kind of a unique experience with your visa type, if you could share a little bit more context, because I know that's a little bit more unique of a route than the H-1B route. So just what is the O visa, what that process looked like for you, what kind of led you to apply for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was actually a visa that I wasn't even aware of at first because H1 is such a popular route that people take. That it was someone actually mentioned to me about the O visa, and it's categorized under extraordinary ability. And so when I read the criteria, I was like, there's no way as an early career psychologist, I would be able to make a case for that. But I think when you really look at the criteria, it was really working with an attorney to understand if I would qualify and kind of how I would qualify for it. And it was really just breaking it down. So one of the first things I did was looking at the criteria and putting down everything that I thought that would even remotely match it, even if it felt a little insignificant. And then it was reaching out to my employer to see if they would be willing to sponsor this visa for me. I think employer support is such a big piece in navigating the immigration journey because a lot of visa types are tied to your employer. And, fortunately, because I had a pre-existing relationship with my employer, it was actually a faculty member from the Chicago school. They were willing to work with me on my O visa. And the next step is really, finding an attorney who has experience in working on this visa with you. And in finding attorneys, I learned very quickly that, Side D training is a little bit more unique in that we're not publishing as much research. And a lot of the attorneys that do the O visa, a big part of this O visa is making a case to the government as to why you're extraordinary. Like, what have you done in your field that sets you apart from the other people in your field? So it's, getting published, it's getting some awards, it's showing that you've come up with a new way of doing therapy. So it was, a lot of attorneys, focus a lot on the publishing aspect, which was really hard. So it was finding an attorney who really understood what PsyD training is like, and someone who was able to frame my experience and my training in a way that would help with the visa. So that was really a big part of what helped with my O1 visa. And a lot of it was just me doing work because ultimately the people that, USCIS that's, viewing your application or your attorneys really are not in the field. So they can have an understanding of it, but really you have to be the one that frames your whole profile and kind of packages it in a way that feels like it meets the criteria. So it was a lot of work towards that. And I think, after I met with my attorney, I was able to, find the gaps, whether it was, publishing more, it was reaching out to supervisors to get letters to, get them to talk about the kind of work that I was doing. It was, applying for scholarships and kind of pulling together all of the data that I had worked on to make a case for this O1. And yeah, it was just kind of, just reaching out to mentors and building the package. It was very daunting, but I think once I broke it down, it felt much more manageable.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. That's very valuable to hear. And I think, yeah, just a kind of speaking to that, H1B is a really common route after OPT, but there's other avenues to kind of stay in a different status of an F1 in the US as well. And sometimes it just takes, like you said, some alternative thinking and looking into other routes as well. For those on H-1B visas, a question that I hear a lot from students, so I'm going to ask it on behalf of everyone that I hear asking this question, is how did you find an employer that was willing to sponsor H-1B, and when did you start to have those conversations with them? I don't know if anyone feels called to answer. Cool.
I'll go. I think with the current scenario, you need to have that conversation on day one. It is a little tricky to convince them initially, and I think that's when you know if you should even go ahead with it or no. What I have heard recently is that a lot of even big companies are having a kind of resisting applying for new H1s. However, they're willing to do transfers, but it's better to have that conversation on the first call.
Thanks, Isha. Anyone else have experience here?
Since I'm going through the process, it's very fresh for me right now. So I particularly think uh, when you're applying for jobs and looking for jobs, you should for initially like look for H1B sponsored jobs, because that's what I did. But the job that I got was through networking. People at my site work at other sites, like the site I'm interning at, they work at other sites who also sponsor visa. No, they work at other sites, and I was networking, and then I found out that this person's site sponsor visa, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna apply and see what happens. So I applied, and I got the job, and the employer herself asked me if I wanted a H1B visa. So that way it worked out for me. But I agree with what Isha mentioned, like it's important to just set that expectation in the interview itself, that although it's I'm just applying for a job, but I would be I would consider H1B visa for for the job. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Habib. I think also something you hit on is important too, is sometimes just going for opportunities and really, I think we hear that word networking thrown around a lot, and it's maybe not everyone's favorite thing to do, but often those connections are really what get you places, or even, get you ideas and things like that. So thanks for sharing. Luna, I think
I'm
yeah,
sorry, but I would just like to add that a lot of students don't know about the cap exempt H1. So that's something that they can consider too. They don't have to essentially go through a lottery, and gap exempt happens anytime during the year. So it doesn't have like a specific time frame like the lottery system does.
That is another thing that I considered for my job. So I applied at a private practice. So private practice is non-profit. So it was not eligible for cap exempt. But if I was going to apply at a community mental health center or a non-profit organization, then I would be I would be qualifying for the cap exempt. That way I have applied for another job that I found on Indeed. Like, I just said H1B sponsored therapist jobs, and then I found this battered women organization which also sponsors visa, and I applied there. I'm waiting for them to call me back though. But still, like, if I get that job, then they can apply for visa any time of the year. Yeah.
Yeah. Good to
Yeah,
have
I
options.
want
Go
to
ahead.
echo what all the ladies been saying, in a way that number one, start as early as possible, start the conversation. And we also have to be very realistic. The current administration make the whole H-1B visa process a lot more difficult. I mean, some chart, we met last year, we shared that, I think our experience are very related, but that was before this current administration. So there are a lot more kind of like leeway we can work with. Now with all those restriction requirements, so it's definitely, start this conversation day zero, not even day one, day zero, right? If they're not, if this is not something they've been currently already doing, there's a very small chance and they want to explore something new. It's just the whole climate, I would say. And then when it comes to the cap, it's also a very interesting topic because I'm going to be very honest. I actually the current agency actually sponsored me for regular H-1B for 3 years in a row. I didn't get the lottery. And year four, I can't keep doing this anymore. I actually consult a different immigration attorney, and then we actually find a way to do cap for me. So I think even for the cap, there's different ways. You really need to work with a very experienced attorney to see how they can be, creative. I will have to be honest, but yet still, stay in the line of laws and find ways that can help you, get the goals, reach the goals you want to reach. So, a qualifying attorney, a very good attorney, I think is definitely a plus, in those kind of scenarios.
So yeah, so my experience is actually similar to everyone here. So I be honest and be upfront with my potential employer that yes, so I am looking forward to a work visa, and and how I get this job is also like what everyone say here, like to make connection. So I actually know about this position from my professor. So he and his wife are moving at that time, and so they have connection and know position opened. So yeah, and so my visa is actually H-1B cap exempt. Because I am working at a district and because they are nonprofit or organization and it is affiliated with university. So that's why it is qualified for cap exempt. So I would suggest anyone who look for a job to look at districts or university job, hospital that is affiliated with universities.
Something else I also wanted to add was, even though I went the O1 route, I did try for my H1. And sometimes your immigration timeline can start even before you've graduated. So in some cases, your employer can actually put you in the lottery for H1 even before you've graduated. So it's kind of called a zeroth attempt, I think. So I actually had two attempts because I had started interviewing 10 months before I was going to graduate, and I had, taken up, I was offered a job and I signed my offer letter, I think 6 months before graduation. And so they were able to put me in the cycle for spring in 2024, and then I was also able to be in the 2025 cycle. So just, I think as soon as you can get started, I think it will be helpful.
Absolutely. That's what happened with me. Like, I'm graduating in June and I applied for job in December. I got it in December, luckily. And now I'm applying before I graduated. Although I spoke to a lawyer, and the lawyer mentioned that there might be less chances since the administration has changed, and like in all the new policies that they have. So there might be less chances, but it doesn't hurt to try. It doesn't hurt to try. What if you get picked from the lottery? So yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, lots of themes that I'm hearing. And so my next question, this is a little bit more broad, but I'm wondering what you felt, and I think a lot of you have touched on this already, but what you felt was most beneficial in your job search, and if there's any resources that you feel like would be good for current students preparing for, looking for jobs and everything to know about.
I can share. So I think for me, I think one of the biggest challenges I faced was the lack of a good volume of jobs, even though industrial organization psychology comes under the STEM field. When I would look at like other people in STEM fields, like a software engineer, they have like 1,000 jobs that would open up. As soon as they open up LinkedIn, you'll have like so many jobs. And what I faced was a lack of finding those many positions that were open. And what I quickly realized is that there are different job titles for the roles that I can apply to. And so I was initially looking at very generic titles that, are I think like change management or something like that. But different organizations call it different things. Like I've heard change management be called strategic analyst, or I've heard like employee relations be called people analyst, or like a personnel scientist and stuff like that. So the way I approached this process after learning about this is kind of looking at the keywords, and I created like a list of keywords that I want to focus on. And so I would, instead of putting the actual job title in the search bar, I would put the keywords and look from there, and then find jobs that I could, know that I have transferable skills. So it didn't have to be like someone needing an IO psychologist, or like someone needing a business psychology major. It could have transferable skills. So that helped me in at least finding a list of jobs to apply for. Um, and then in terms of resources, I think I'd like to echo what people said about networking. It's really important to like start networking through LinkedIn, or also through your professors. They're like a big asset with finding you those connections in the job market. And then also leveraging AI tools. Like there are so many job extensions, I think, or like Chrome extensions that you can add while searching for jobs. And I know one of the ones that I used was froghire.ai, which is a job extension kind of to put in when you're looking for jobs, and they would pull data from the company if they have sponsored in the past. And so while you're applying to them, you can see if this job is going to sponsor or not, or if they have a history. So I think like AI tools like that have been super helpful. Even tools to help you kind of look through relevant jobs for you, and then help you with like giving you an idea if your current resume has been will be ATS friendly, and that would give you an idea if you have to customize this resume or not. Which in the beginning I thought it was like, oh, I'm just going to mass apply and like use one resume so that I get as many applications out there. But I quickly realized that that's not the best way to go. So tailoring your resume, I think, was also one of the ways I kind of went through my process.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's all really good advice. And for those of you that are watching this as a recording that might not see the chat, there's a couple resources that were shared. One is myvisajobs.com. Thank you, SumChart, for finding potential employers for H-1B. And another AI tool that was shared, thank you, Isha, was simplyfi.ai and JobRight. Okay. Anything else to share about that? Because then I would love to, we're at almost at the half-hour mark, to open it up to any questions that our current students have. Any other just general things that were most helpful, resources? challenges that you encountered and how you overcame them?
Just to echo what some people have already said, I think starting as soon as you can and then leaning on connections. But also looking back, I've realized how much my training sites for my doctorate program opened doors for me later. So, really being mindful of where you train, and being able to build strong connections while you're there. Because when I was looking for my postdoc, I really reached out to all of my supervisors, that I had worked with in the past. And I think that really paid off, even if they weren't looking to hire, or even if the site wasn't able to sponsor my H1. They were able to put me in connection with other people. And even the settings that I worked in, I worked in a hospital setting, in a community mental health setting, in a private practice setting. And so I had opportunities to explore, because if you have a pre-existing relationship with an employer, if you worked with them in some capacity, they're just more willing to work with you for visa stuff later on.
And what I want to add is when you are on OPT, so it is a great opportunity to sell yourself to employers that yes, so you are H-1B visa worth, like if they want to spend a lot of money to hire an attorney to go through the process with you. So make sure that yes, try to sell yourself as much as you can at that time. So yeah. And I know a lot of us talking about immigration lawyers. So yeah, so make sure you find reliable sources because at like this time, so a lot of rules and regulations change, rumors. So make sure you talk to immigration lawyers to confirm everything. And I know this is something that I shared last year too. Like some um, offices offer an hour free consultation, so you can use those time to just like get information as much as you can.
Yeah, I actually got my lawyer's number from my professor. I was just talking to her and I told her that I got this job, and I wanted her to go through the offer letter that I got before I accept it. So I didn't know she's also an immigrant. So she had her lawyer and she gave me her lawyer, and I had that free consultation interview as well. So that was really beneficial. So really talk to your professors, pick the professor that you know uh that works for you, and that not like really works for you, but like that who'll help you, and like just make good connections with them. And I agree with what Simran said, like making good connections at the site is really beneficial. And I personally thought having an hands-on game at your site is really good way to approach the job market, because they really want someone who's like just there, and like they're willing to do everything, or would they're like just bringing up things spontaneously. So that was something that helped me in class and at site.
Thank you. And yeah, for anybody on the call, our current students, and we're talking a lot about H-1B and O visas and things like that. I also want to just give the context for those of you that might be thinking down the line. I'm pretty sure that all of our alumni or soon-to-be alumni still started in OPT through their F1 status, still applied for OPT and started there, and then changed into whatever future status that they were going into, or the STEM extension, and they're looking for another employer sponsored visa. So yeah, OPT is definitely, yeah, just really important. It's a year your employer doesn't have to do anything. You're still sponsored under the school, and they can take advantage of that as well. All right. Well, I want to open it up for any questions from our current students. Sophia, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just want to know if I got it right. So during our OPT period, that would be a time to get like a job and make sure that they sponsor visas. And I was wondering, everybody said like you should start the process early. So how would that look like? Like what's early? Is it like I mean, I know that from day one, but then when do you have to really start the process of making this change?
I can speak a little, go ahead, yeah, I'll leave it up to our current students or our alumni, and I can jump in with any.
So I would say even before OPT, so the way that I was approaching it was even for my OPT, I wanted someone who would be willing to sponsor my H1 beyond that. Because, if you go for an employer that is not going to sponsor you beyond your OPT, it becomes really challenging to find the next one who would, if you have not had any sort of relationship with them, if they haven't seen, how you work. So really, even for your OPT, try to find someone who's willing to do your H1, and so like have that conversation even before you accept the job, like a lot of the other people have been saying, like on the first call of like, hey, I am looking for immigration support down the line, is that something you feel like you'll be able to do? And again, I mean, for me personally, I had started. So the way that it works for PsyD is that your fourth year is your internship here, and then your fifth year is your internship here, and then you do postdoc, which is basically your OPT year is your postdoc year. So I had started looking like 8 months before I was going to graduate for my OPT job that would sponsor my visa.
I also started looking in November 2025, because I'll be graduating in June 2026, like in 4 months. So I started applying then because I wanted to make sure I have a job before I graduate, so that as soon as so that I can apply for OPT in April, and I can start as soon as I get my EAD, the work permit that we need on OPT, right? So good thing, if you are graduating this June, to this right now would be the right time for you to start applying for jobs. And if you're graduating next year, then I would suggest like somewhere around November or December would be right time for you to like start interviewing, so that you have. And it doesn't hurt to give interviews initially. I know people want that you already graduated or you're on your licensure track, and like you're not student anymore. I know they want that, but some people, they don't care. They if they like you, they will be willing to hire you before you graduate as well. So just do it.
Yeah, it can't hurt. And I know that Padmini, you introduced yourself in the beginning, but Sophia, for context, if with this, Padmini is in the counseling psychology program in Chicago, which I know might be relevant to you as well.
I have something that I want to add, like what Simran and Padmini mentioned. So yeah, so when I had an interview for a job when I was on OPT, so I also ended interview with just like, yeah, so so in the future, so I will need you to apply for H-1B visa because I will be on OPT. You are good for 1 year, just give them a heads up. So they have time to do some research. And I also did research on my part, and I searched employer on the website. Looks like they didn't have experience before, and so I also give them information that I can get, like H-1B visa from USCIS website. So I also tell them, and they also have plan and timeline of like, yeah, so they will consult with an attorney right away. So if you tell them upfront, so they also can plan the process on their part too.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's often a lot of educating employers sometimes too as well if they haven't gone through process yet, and including even for about OPT, if Some employers might not understand what having a student on an F1 visa on OPT means. I will say if an employer is ever unsure about the OPT part, Bridget and I are also available to kind of help share some of that information, not so much on the H-1B area. And I also just wanted to add some context. I know we have some really exceptional alumni here, and I know everybody on the call is exceptional as well. And like I've been hearing also, there are some changes administratively, and a lot of these situations are best case scenario. And there could also be times where you are on OPT and you're not finding an employer that is willing to sponsor your H-1B. That's also, and sometimes you just need to find a good opportunity for you to take advantage of that OPT benefit. I definitely don't think that that's always the end of the world or means that you won't be able to find that through your OPT period. So there are also a lot of students that do start an OPT. The OPT employer might not be an employer that's willing to sponsor H-1B, but then students have found success sometimes with during their OPT period finding another employer to sponsor their H-1B for after that period ends.
And
Go
I
ahead.
think in those cases, it's the most helpful to go for cap exempt H-1B. So I had a few peers in PsyD that, did their OPT at a private practice and then weren't able to get their H-1Bs picked in the lottery or the employers weren't willing. And a lot of them then went to college counseling centers, which are usually, the safest bet to be able to get cap exempt.
And I want to add one more thing, on top of everything, everybody's share, I think location also matters. Because I'm gonna be honest, I live in Southern California. There's actually not a lot of university opportunities, right? So I think for the international students yourselves, you also have to determine, what's the goal you want. Do you want to stay in the state or, do you want to live in a place? So it's like, if your goal is to stay in the state, maybe you have to relocate. I mean, again, just like Charlene was sharing, I think my case is also very unique. I actually was introduced to my current employee by one of the alumni as well. So, there's connection, people know people, but a lot of times, you at certain metropolitan areas, you might not get as many opportunity as you wanted. But if you're willing to relocate to a different state, you might have more opportunities coming to you as well. So I want to, remind some of those students to keep those options open as well.
Very good advice. Did I see you had another question, Sophia?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually about kind of what Simran said, like what would be maybe some, I guess, not locations, like different sites or specific jobs that would be more prone to sponsoring. For example, I don't know, it feels like maybe hospitals would be more willing to sponsor rather than private practice. I don't know if that's the case, but it's an example.
I would say private practice are probably very less likely. Let's just be very realistic here. So I would say public agencies, the bigger the agency goes, the better chances you have, and especially under this current administration. If you can go for some state agency, even better. Because a few months ago, I was actually at the Evolution of Psychotherapy conferences. I actually saw, the California State Prison, the California State Prison, prison and hospital. They're both recruiting people. And I actually had this conversation, although I have all those things situated already. So I had this conversation with them. I was like, are you guys sponsor, work visa and stuff? So both of them actually gave me the yes answer. However, they also told me, even for them, they've been doing this for over, decades. They said last year, I think it's the California State Prison System. They said last year they had their first rejection for H-1B visa too. So the landscape is changing. But I would say, the bigger the agencies are, the better the chances you are, right? And so imagine if you're going for smaller agencies, the chances are going to be even more challenging. Big hospitals, big university schools. I would say these are probably some of your top priorities just to go look for. County agencies,
Any other questions? Feel free to unmute, raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat as well. Bridget, are there any questions that you've heard from students quite a bit that you think would be good to ask?
I was trying to think of that, but I feel like a lot of them have been covered by everyone so far.
Okay. I know we have some time left, so I'm trying to think of some other questions off the top of my head too, because all of you have shared. I'm wondering if anybody just, I know you have such wealth of experience, just any other advice that you think would be helpful for soon-to-be graduates, or even seeing some of the names on the screen here, even students starting their Chicago school program, to think about in terms of job search, employment, all that.
There's this one thing that my professor told me, my seminar professor told me, that if you are on a licensure track, get the licensure work done as soon as possible. Do the exam so that as soon as you graduate, you get the degree conferred, you can apply for the licensure, because it takes like 6 weeks to get your license in hand. 6 weeks to 8 weeks, something like that, to get your license in hand. And once you have the license, the employers are more they're more prone to hire you. And one thing I did in my interview was tell them that I am giving exam this time, and as soon as I graduate, I will apply for the license, and in 6 months, in 6 weeks, I will get my license. So she really liked that, like, I had scheduled everything on a timeline, that this is when I'm going to do this is when I'm going to do that. So like that structured way of going about it was something that was beneficial. So I would suggest that for others as well.
Good advice. And from my end as a staff person, I would also encourage anybody that has questions about licensure to just talk with your departments early on about that, understand really what the requirements are, the timeline, those kinds of things. And then if there are questions about how that fits into your international student status and what you're able to do through like CPT while you're a student, OPT after you're graduating, and then what you might need to leave for beyond that, then you can pull in me or Bridget to have those conversations as well. But it's a good idea to really understand those licensure requirements and options early on to plan for them, so then there's no surprises down the line as you're wrapping things up. Anything else?
I also want to add one more thing, just in terms of kind of like networking. I know everybody keep beating this word a lot. It's very important. I want to provide a slightly different angle here as well, because now the role I have in, I actually work closely with a lot of the public entities. I would say also utilize kind of like networking is not necessarily just you go to an event, introduce yourself. A lot of times it's also plug yourself in some of those volunteer opportunities. Especially, if you're gearing towards, let's say, government entities, some of those bigger organizations, I'm pretty sure they have some volunteer programs going on. Plug yourself in there too. So at least you have one or two familiar faces in those agencies, and they might help you to open some doors as well. And I know I saw the comment earlier saying it is an employer market, right? You have to try your numbers, but imagine if the employers are getting 10, 20, 100 resumes. But if you know someone from that agency, from that department, your chances of at least pass your resume to the next round will be significantly increased. So be creative. Networking is not just go to event. Have some other creative ways. Any potential employer you want to go see if they have any events that organizing public events, public meetings, especially for government entity. There's a lot of those meetings opportunities too. So don't be shy. Just plug yourself in, and especially if you do speak another language. If you do have the other kind of multicultural specialties don't be shy, to sell yourself on that. The host community needs those services. It is your unique strengths. So sell yourself on that.
One more thing I want to add. One more thing I've been doing is my program, my OPT chair, the one who gives us the helps us through the our present internship that we have. She has been sending us jobs, many jobs, many open therapist positions for the recent graduate students or going to be graduate students. So you should definitely go look at them and like apply for it, because I did apply for one of them and I heard back from them, and they were like, they scheduled an interview with me. I have not had the interview yet, but I'm still like, I have got the job, but I'm still like, open to opportunities and like getting interviews done with other people if like, I prefer them better. Yeah.
Great.
And my suggestion would be always have backup plans. Um, so Simran and I actually were in the same cohort, and we had the same employer too, and they applied for H-1B for us, and we weren't lucky enough to get lottery H-1B. So we came back to get our PhD for Simran in Society. So at that time, so we are certified BCBA already, and there are opportunity that when we are in PhD programs, so we can keep looking for potential employers. And even now, so even I'm on H-1B, so it doesn't mean that I am safe, so because we have to extend every 3 years. So what happened in next 3 years if my employer doesn't have budget for applying the extension? So it is just all about planning ahead, always have b backup plans for yourself.
One question I actually just thought of, because thinking about the budget, right? And that the H-1B sponsorship can be a lot of money for the employer to pay. So, Simran, do you know what that cost looks like for being sponsored for the O1?
It is pretty pricey for the O1. And, for H1, there's a lot of laws in terms of like your employer has to be the one to cover that cost. Fortunately and unfortunately for the O1, the employee can cover the cost. So, that helps because your employer isn't incurring, a cost to keep you, but there's also, there's a big role your employer plays in being able to kind of position your role in a certain way. The cost, I can't, I don't know the breakdown of everything, but I applied for premium processing because if you don't apply for premium processing visas anymore, it takes forever. So that in itself is like 2,500 or something for O1, and then you have like application fees. So the fees to just apply for your O1 are about like 3.5 to 4.5 thousand dollars, and then you have your attorney fees on top of that, which would be like another $3,000 or $4,000 in total. So that's what you're paying out of your pocket to be able to apply for the O1, and you don't even know if you'll be able to get it or not. Yeah, so it is pricey.
Thanks. I think that's really helpful, like context to have, because I know that sometimes with students being concerned too about looking for sponsorship for the H-1B and knowing that they have to find an employer that's willing to pay for it. But also, like you were saying, it's difficult if you're the one that's having to pay that high cost yourself.
Any final words or final questions?
I mean, just something I want to share. Like, as a student, I remember being on the other side of these panels and just everything would feel so overwhelming and so daunting. And it would feel like I'm always behind, like I need to buck up, like I'm not doing enough, like I need to network more. And I'm inherently a little bit of an introvert. And so just the self-doubt of reaching out to people, putting myself out there just sounded really scary and exhausting. And something I wish I had done more, in hindsight is recognizing that your supervisors, your mentors, people that you come across are always wanting to help you. They're rooting to help you. And I think that so many people when I was applying for my own, when I reached out to so many people and they all kind of showed up in ways that I wouldn't have even expected. So just knowing that and keeping that in mind, I think can make, can take the pressure off networking that everyone around you is wanting to help you and they're not finding reasons to say no. So hopefully it takes the nerves off, reaching out a little bit.
And I'm volunteering myself, and I hope everybody here don't mind. I'm gonna volunteer all the other panelists too, right? So for anyone who's listening or looking at the recording later on, definitely feel free to reach out to any of us. We might not able to give you any very specific solutions, but we walk the path, and hopefully we can give you some pointers. We can connect you with some folks. Good thing is we are located in different areas, right? So maybe we can, we will try our best to help as well.
Yeah, I also want to say that this job hunting process is going to be very intense, and it sometimes feels very repetitive and like discouraging and sometimes even personal. But I think it's important to remember that it's not a reflection of your worth or capabilities, and it's more so just the market right now and the competition around you. So I think my only advice would be just keep your head up high, be strategic, but don't take it personally. Whatever rejection you face, it will just make you stronger. And I think all of us would agree that the hardest decision we took was to pack our entire lives into suitcases and book a flight to another country. So I think you've already done that. So you're very resilient, and all you have to do is like carry that courage into your career and your job, and you'll be fine.
I think those were some very beautiful words to end on. So I'm going to say let's leave it at that. Because yeah, I think that's all very resonant, I'm sure, for everyone. Well, thank you so much for our panelists for taking the time out of your busy days, end of the week, Friday afternoon or evening to join us. I know that this is so valuable for our current students and even for myself, just hearing all of your feedback, and then when students ask me for advice and things, I can reference some of the things you're sharing as well. So really thank you. It feels also very special to see all of you, many of you who have we've worked with before, and to see you doing good things and helping your communities and this community as well. So thank you for being here, and to our current students, thank you for joining. And like I said, we'll
Thank you.
share this out, and I will reach out to our current panelists to see what contact information they want to share, and I'll share that out as well with everyone. Okay. Thank you. I hope everyone has a really great weekend. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.